Hello everyone, this is Alexei Borealis, and today I will talk about Venus in man's chart. Modern astrology is a relatively new discipline. Its foundations only took shape, I would say, at the end of the 19th century. Before that, a different kind of astrology existed, what we now call traditional astrology. Traditional astrology was not concerned with personality traits or karma, but with real-world events, and above all, it was focused on predictions. And the difference between schools is vast. For example, in modern astrology, Venus in a man's chart is said to describe how he behaves in love and what kind of women he's drawn to, but this doesn't hold up in reality. Here is a real-life example. My behavior in relationships has changed over time. As a teenager, I acted one way. In college, it was different. And now it is something else entirely. I had 3 wives. The first was creative, the second one was highly emotional, and the third logical and structured. And these are 3 completely different types. Yet Venus in my horoscope has always been in the same sign and house. The conclusion is obvious. Modern astrology makes assumptions, often without any factual basis, and my recent experiment clearly demonstrated that. And below this video, I will attach the link to the results of this experiment. But what about traditional astrology? It takes a different approach. In a man's chart, Venus signifies events. They are not always pleasant and not necessarily related to love. Venus can be the planet of love, but not in every chart. More often, it signifies completely different things. This depends on which houses her rays pass through, rays being a metaphor of astrological influence. It is the houses that determine how Venus will manifest in a particular chart. Venus is connected with love and marriage only when her rays pass through the 7th house of love and marriage. This is the only house that governs this sphere of life, and only it can focus Venus's energy on that area. And only in this case can Venus bring love or lead to marriage. If Venus is not connected to the 7th house, she will be involved in other types of events. And in that case, another planet connected to the 7th house will take over the responsibility for love. Take a look at my chart. I have Venus visually not connected to the 7th house. Instead, she is located in the 12th house, the house of severe diseases or illnesses. This means that her influence is focused specifically on that area of my life. In other words, the 12th house obligates or determines Venus to manifest through the diseases, through illnesses. Note, if Venus were in a favorable celestial state, say in her own sign of exaltation, she wouldn't be able to bring harm. On the contrary, she would act against the matters of the 12th house, bringing illnesses to the end or even offering protection from illnesses. But that's not the case in my chart. But does this mean we completely ignore Venus's universal nature? Of course not. What does Venus mean universally? Venus has universal significations, and these are the things she represents by analogy, regardless of her position in any particular chart. And some of them include, for instance, among metals she signifies copper, among people, women, among bodily organs, the kidneys, among colors, pink and green, and among objects, jewelry, cosmetics, and luxury, and so on. And these meanings are always present, but in every horoscope, Venus operates within a specific area of life, and that it narrows the range of her expressions. In my chart, for example, Venus is placed in the 12th house of illnesses. That means her universal significations only manifest in the topic of health. As a result, a specific meaning emerges: diseases of kidneys or urinary system. Venus won't indicate heart diseases, that's the Sun's domain. She won't cause liver problems, that's Jupiter's responsibility. So from a Venus's placement in the 12th house, one can reasonably expect issues specifically related to the kidneys or urinary system. And what about love? The question arises, can such a Venus in my chart still bring love or marriage? And as I mentioned earlier, there is only one important condition. The astrological rays of Venus must pass through the 7th house. Only then will Venus be involved in the matters of relationships. And in my chart, the last part of the 7th house is in the sign of Libra, and Libra is ruled by Venus. Traditional astrology has a rule: a zodiac sign radiates the influence of its ruler. This means that the sign of Libra also emits Venusian rays, and these rays are not as strong as those coming directly from the Venus's body, but they are still effective. When these rays of Venus, the planet of love and marriage, pass through the 7th house of love and marriage, they lead to new relationships or marriages. So yes, thanks to Libra in my 7th house, Venus can still manifest as a planet of love, not directly, but through the signs she rules. As we know, astrological houses focus planetary rays on specific life areas. There is one important rule: the closer the rays pass to the cusp of the house, the stronger the effect. And in my chart, Venus rules two signs, Libra and Taurus. And these signs actively emit Venusian energy, and they fall on the cusp of the 8th and 3rd houses. This means Venus actively influences not only illnesses through her placement in the 12th house, but also matters of the 3rd house, I mean siblings, and causes life-threatening situation, 8th house. With siblings, it's simple, I don't have any, so Venus's influence on the 3rd house doesn't manifest in my life, but death is inevitable for everyone. Now let's look at the meaning combined in Venus. These are love, diseases of kidneys and urinary system, death, or life-threatening situations. Often, if a planet governs several areas of life, it means those areas are directly interconnected. What do these have in common? Love is not related to disease or death, but disease is often logically connected to passing away. People usually die not from love, but from illnesses. It turns out that my Venus points not only to illness, but also to death resulting from illness. From this follows an important conclusion: my death will not be caused by an accident, fall or poisoning. It will happen for natural reasons, due to kidney or urinary disease or organ wear related to Venus. Look at what is happening here. On one hand, Venus is the planet of love. On the other hand, she is associated with kidney diseases and even natural death. This raises the question: does every time I fall in love put me at risk of illness? Or conversely, will a romance begin whenever my life is threatened? And of course not. The same planet can manifest differently at different times. When will Venus, as a promiser of events, promise illness, and when will she promise love? To understand this, we'll use a special method, primary directions. This is an ancient forecasting technique in which planets and their aspects continue their movements across the sky, along with the rotation of the celestial sphere during the first 24 hours after a person's birth. And during this time, they, so to say, reach key points of the chart, namely the houses, cusp, and the planets. And astrologists measure this movement in degrees. Each degree roughly corresponds to 1 year of life. This way, we can precisely determine in which year Venus will manifest illness or death, and in which years she will bring romance or marriage. To see how accurately we have determined Venus's significations, we will compare her promises with notable events in my life. Regarding illnesses, I had one serious case. In February 2009, I suffered an acute kidney attack and I was hospitalized urgently. And regarding romances, there were many stories, but two stand out. The first was a very intense romance that happened at the end of 2000 and at the beginning of 2001. I don't recall the exact month, but it was during the winter period between the years. And the second was a marriage for great love in May 2019, and this is well documented. Regarding death, I'm still alive, so there is no events to compare here yet. So let's proceed with the verification. Here are the primary directions of all Venus's aspect to the ascendant, the significator of my life and my body, and the latter has been especially important in matters of health. These directions show all possible events in my life related to Venus, both good and bad, and everything depends on the nature of aspect. When we talk about bad event, we mean the negative role of Venus. She has only one such a role: diseases of kidneys and urinary system, as well as threat of death. And good events, on the other hand, are connected with love and marriage. So if we have correctly identified Venus's role, these are exactly the kinds of events that we should expect. Some directions are empty. They do not promise specific events, but only allow for their possibility. And real events are brought about only by strong directions. And what are strong directions? These are aspects, i.e. promissors, with powerful constructive or destructive nature. They activate their role, either positive or negative events they promise, to the fullest. So let's look at these directions and highlight the most important ones, the most constructive and the most destructive. I will skip the first direction at 3 years old. Usually infants do not experience significant events in their lives, and this particular direction doesn't promise anything substantial. So, fact check number 1. The next direction is a sextile of Venus, which approach the ascendant. The sextile accumulates the best qualities of Venus, which means a promise of love. Then this aspect falls into the sign of Pisces, the place of Venus's exaltation, and this further strengthens the positive promise. This is an extremely favorable aspect, so the direction is strong. Additionally, the aspect touches the first house and the moon in the first house, which among other significations governs strong emotions related to me as a character and to the 7th opposite house. I expect a great love at the end of 2000, and this matches reality. My first great love really did happen at the end of 2000 and the beginning of 2001, a precise confirmation. Fact check number 2. The next aspect is a square from Venus. What does a square do? It accumulates the worst qualities of Venus, and then the worst qualities include the kidney-related diseases and the threat of death. And then this harmful aspect falls at the 17th degrees of Aries, the sign of Venus's sextile. This means it maximally activates her destructive facet. So I expect an acute kidney episode in February 2009. And I say acute because the aspect falls in Aries. This means the illness, the aspect, manifests through its dispositor, Mars, which adds speed and intensity to any process. And indeed, in February 2009, I suffered a severe kidney attack and was hospitalized urgently. And this is yet another confirmation of the correctness of Venus's interpretation. Fact check number 3. The next direction is a trine from Venus. This is a very favorable aspect. It collects Venus's best qualities and then places them in a sign she rules, further strengthening her positive traits, in this case, the promise of love. The direction points to April 2019, and indeed, a month later, in May 2019, I had a marriage based on a deep love, and yet another precise confirmation of Venus's signification. So all the other directions relate to the future. The next directions from Venus will occur in 2053. That's still a long way off. What might it bring? The aspect is mixed. On one hand, a sextile gathers Venus's best qualities. On the other, it places them in the sign of her exile. This is not a strong direction. It has a mixed nature, mixed effect. It doesn't promise great harm, but merely allows for the possibility of illness. However, there are two important factors. The first, in 2053, I'll be 76 years old, and even a mild illness at this age can be dangerous. And the second, this aspect lands at the 17th degree of the Scorpio, right in the 8th house, the house of death. And that makes things more serious. Venus is linking illness with a threat to life in that particular direction, and this is exactly what she does in the natal chart. So this direction clearly repeats Venus's killing role. Add to that my age, and everything suggests this direction could bring a natural death from kidney failure or other organ-related conditions associated with Venus. So the forecast is clear. Somewhere between March and May 2053, there's a potential time of departure, not from accident or external danger, but from natural causes. So what can I do with this? And this is where the power of predictive astrology truly reveals itself. I know the possible time of departure. I know the cause of my future death, which means I can act in advance. I can start monitoring my kidneys, adjusting my diet, and change my lifestyle. And all this helps reduce the risk of this killing aspect. So it is totally in my hands. Many people think that death or other events are absolutely predetermined, but this is not true. With the right effort, I may be able to live through this dangerous period and gain at least 11 more years of life. So look what other events are there. There is one favorable direction coming up at the age of 88, but I doubt it will produce a great love or wedding by then, especially since I'm already happily married. And the context will almost certainly prevent this direction from manifestation in any significant way. And the direction at the age of 94 is also unlikely to bring anything good. And the opposition gathers the worst qualities of Venus, the promise of illness, and places it in the sign that doesn't strengthen that negativity. So this direction doesn't promise great illness or death, it merely allows them to happen. And in this case, the condition of the body will be a decisive factor. And that's something, again, I can influence. But the next direction at the age of 96 almost inevitably points to a serious illness. The trine collects Venus's best qualities, but at the age of 96, talking about marriage or new romance is far less appropriate than talking about health. And when it comes to strong health, Venus has no beneficial qualities. So there is nothing good in Venus from a health perspective to be accumulated by this aspect. So this aspect falls into Venus's fall, greatly amplifying her worst traits, which translates into the sudden and acute illness. So I emphasize the intensity of this illness because of the condition of fall. It exaggerates Venus's harmful qualities, turning the illness into something sharp and severe. So at the age of 96, any major illness is likely to be fatal, simply due to the age. So conclusion is, if I manage to pass the first critical point at age 76, I'll have a chance to live into deep old age, but 96 seems to be the absolute limit granted to me. As you can see, the modern belief that Venus in a man's chart shows the type of women he's attracted to doesn't hold up. I have been drawn to very different women at different stages of my life. And my tastes, my expectation and views on love and marriage and family, they changed, and Venus had nothing to do with it. However, the predictive astrology does work. The meanings of planets can be tested against real-life events. It is all quite clear. There is a direction, there is a specific promise from the planet, and then there is a result, an observable phenomenon. So this is basically it for today. If you like this video, please give it a thumb, subscribe to my channel, and see you in the following episode.